Okay, good evening and welcome to the first in a series of community meetings hosted by the Schenectady Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative. My name is Matthew Deering. I'm a sergeant with the Schenectady Police Department. I'd like to first thank everyone for their attendance and participation in this evening's kickoff meeting. Tonight you will hear from the Mayor of the City of Schenectady, Gary McCarthy, the Chief of the Schenectady Police Department, Eric Clifford, the Vice President of Talent and Inclusion at the Capital Region Chamber, Jason Benitez, and from the Mayor's Office, Carissa Vizana. I'd like to remind members of the public that they can submit questions and testimony to the Schenectady Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative at any time by emailing spdcollaborative@schenectadypd.com. In addition, should any media personnel have any questions, they are urged to contact one of the Schenectady Police Department's public information officers. We'll start this evening's meeting with a few words from Mayor Gary McCarthy.
Thank you, Sergeant. I want to express my thanks to everyone who's put all the time and effort in that brings us to this point tonight. We've seen some tragic things nationally. The governor has issued an executive order to every community to put in place a process that deals with the inequity, with systemic racism, with implicit bias, and to hopefully make not only our individual communities stronger, but the state as a whole stronger and better. And that we have to recognize that in Schenectady that we have areas that we can improve on. We want to create an environment where everyone is treated equally and opportunity presents itself to everyone in an equal manner. Want to deliver policing in a manner where our officers are respected, they're looked up to as community leaders, and that they create an environment that we're all proud of. And so again, I thank Jason specifically for his time and effort in joining this, the staff in the police department, my office, other staff members in terms of bringing this all together, and then the different groups that are working within the community where that we've solicited their participation. We want those ideas, and I speak on behalf of the City Council also that has been part of this in looking forward to dialogue and discussion that hopefully is going to make us all better and stronger. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Clifford.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome everyone. I'd like to start off by acknowledging participants that have been very instrumental in getting us from our pre-planning stages in mid-July to today. The Schenectady Police Department command staff, specifically Assistant Chief Michael Sieber and Assistant Chief Daryl Mallard, Lieutenant Ryan Mascherone, and Lieutenant Michael McLaughlin, and our lead crime analyst, Matthew Douglas. I'd also like to thank Mayor McCarthy and his leadership and his assistant, Carissa Vizana, who has taken the lead on organizing and facilitating this initiative, leading us to be here tonight. I would also like to thank Dr. Robert Warden and Dr. Sarah McLean of the Fit Institute for agreeing to be our research partners. Lastly, I would like to thank the Schenectady City Council for their support, and cooperation, and leadership, and most importantly, each and every member of the Schenectady Police Reform and Reinvention Steering Committee who have taken time out of their busy schedules to advise us over the past 12 weeks. I thank each and every one of you tremendously, and I thank everybody for being here tonight. I'm proud of the work that the Schenectady Police Department members have been doing over the past decade, specifically over the past 4 years that I've been leading this agency. Receiving statewide accreditation was a monumental task for this agency and a testament of the hard work being done daily by each officer. I'm proud of the fact that the state of New York has reviewed our policies, procedures, and strategies and certified that we've met their standards. With that being said, I recognize that this is a transformational time right now in our profession, our community, and society at large. Although we have met the expectations of the state, it is the community's expectations that I aim to meet. I recognize the past harms that this agency have inflicted on this community. I know that trust is not easy to obtain, it's easy to lose. We have disproportionate policing in our communities of color. I recognize that, and nobody should have to live that way. I recognize that we are all human, and if it is affecting one member of our community, it's affecting all of us. In this diverse community, trust is very important. When any segment of our community lacks trust in their own safety, when they do not trust the police, that they are there to help them, to solve problems, we as a community have a problem. I recognize this, we recognize this, and we are taking it very seriously. In a short moment, I will be going over a PowerPoint presentation that will be uploaded onto the city website. The portion I plan to go over tonight speaks to why we are here tonight. The portion I plan to go over, I encourage everybody to pay attention. But I also encourage everybody to review the full PowerPoint that will be posted on our website tomorrow, as it will go into further depth of our organizational structure and what we do and why we do it. If that piques your interest, over the next week or so, we will be posting videos of presentations that go deeper into exactly the different segments that you'll see on the PowerPoint. So please be patient with us as we get these videos done, as we're working our best to get to them. I'd now like to turn it over to our moderator, Jason Benitez, who will deliver his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Chief and Mayor, and good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Benitez. I go by he and him pronouns, and I currently serve as the Vice President of Talent and Inclusion at the Capital Region Chamber. I humbly come to this group and the work it is charged to do with the best of intentions and a sincere willingness to do what we can to produce meaningful, needed change. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and attended the University at Albany for both my undergrad and graduate work in sociology and educational administration. Before joining the Capital Region Chamber last year, I worked 15 plus years in higher education at 3 local institutions, Albany, SUNY Schenectady, and most recently Union College. My roles, particularly while at Union College, were expressly tasked with fostering a more diverse and inclusive environment for all students, and quite often involved mediating and facilitating some difficult conversations. I am here in a role as a moderator, and as such, it is my role and responsibility, one that I am taking very seriously, to ensure that these conversations are as authentic as possible, while also constructive and productive. The executive order given by Governor Cuomo and the subsequent task forces that have been created are a public acknowledgement that there are issues and problems in the areas of policing policies, practices, and procedures that need to improve, particularly when it comes to addressing the disparities that affect communities of color. We are here to move the governor's executive order mandate forward. This must involve the process of collectively taking a deep look at what conversations and, more importantly, what actions need to happen to work toward better outcomes. The issues facing our communities are multi-layered and will certainly require a robust set of holistic solutions for betterment. Racial disparities in regard to policing are the focus at the moment, though we are sure that underlying issues will naturally enter the conversations. We are hopeful that this effort will lead to policy suggestions with community input, and that those policy changes will be adopted to make these issues better. As we enter the phase of community conversations tomorrow evening, we have attempted to include as many stakeholders as possible and believe that we will hear from individuals who are fairly representative of the community and their perspectives. This task force and these community conversations will be an opportunity for us to center the diverse voices in the community in a way that policy crafters and decision makers will listen and respond to. And it won't be easy and will likely be uncomfortable at times. But in order for us to make substantial policy change, we need to be able to work through differing opinions, approaches, and personalities. We have to be willing to listen to how people feel. We cannot shy away from the emotion and at times trauma that may be expressed throughout these sessions. We have to be willing to let individuals be the experts of their own lived experiences. For example, while I identify as a person of color, a Latino male, I am aware that I do not walk in the world and present to people as Black. I can try to learn and empathize, but I will never really know what living in Black skin is like. And I am aware and admit that I am skin privileged in that way. A wise colleague recently shared with me that, quote, they only know what they know about people because they are willing to have conversations with diverse individuals. I wonder at times how homogenous our circles that we function in can be, and how this somewhat limits our perspectives and experiences, particularly where empathy is needed in trying to see the issue from another person's point of view. I'd like to close by stating that we are individuals, but these issues are systemic, with generations of chapters to these stories. No one task force or community conversation will be able to undo the full and at times dark history of the disparities we spoke of earlier. But here we find ourselves nonetheless. Our hope is that these conversations and the work of the task force can be just the beginning steps to building and repairing trust between the police force and the diverse members of the community they serve. I'm going to go a little bit off script and speak from the heart here, but many of you in the community on this call know me, know what I stand for and what I represent. I would not have agreed to participate in this process if I did not believe that we have a real opportunity here to actively listen to each other and hopefully learn from the mistakes that have been previously made. I choose to stay engaged and encourage others to do so for the same. For the fact is that if we can truly come together, listen with open minds and hearts, and proactively develop empathy, I think that we can lead to some substantial policy change. We are not perfect. I do not have all the answers, and we are not going to be able to solve all of these multifaceted issues in one meeting or even 1 year. But I'm committing to staying engaged, getting involved, and coming together with the many community members who want to see and do better. These issues are tearing our communities apart, both nationally and locally. And I just really, want to encourage people to come to these conversations, bringing your authentic selves, your authentic stories, but keeping in mind that we need these conversations to be productive and eventually lead to a set of suggestions that can be identified for potential policy and law change. So with that, I just want to talk a little bit about tomorrow when we start these conversations. The task force and I have developed a set of community conversation guidelines. We don't really want to call them rules, but they're more guidelines that we hope will guide the conversation. They really attempt to encourage people to listen, and it will also kind of demonstrate how we'd like these conversations to flow in order to stay productive. I will go into these a little bit more thoroughly when the sessions start tomorrow evening, and we will go line by line, reading each of them to ensure that folks are aware of kind of the parameters that we'd like these conversations to kind of happen in. And obviously we're, throughout this whole process, open to feedback from many. So I think I'm going to leave my comments there. Again, I appreciate everyone that's here and that's present and that's attempting to chip in their way for this issue. And I look forward to getting to the difficult but much needed work ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And I know I speak on behalf of the mayor and the entire steering committee when I thank you for your time and efforts here. And I know that we're in good hands for you being our moderator. I would now like to share with our audience the PowerPoint presentation that I have for tonight. And again, I want to reiterate the fact that we do have a larger PowerPoint, but the slides I want to go over tonight are the ones that are specific to why we are here tonight, the issues that many people in the community have questions about, and we want to give answers to. And part of the reason why I'm presenting this and we are posting it online is that I really want to encourage everybody to, over the next couple of days to look at it more, and hopefully it'll spark conversations for topic for conversation as we proceed with our individual organizational conversations. So. I'm beginning with the beginning slides are the introduction. I already introduced our staff and our partners, and this presentation is important right now because as we begin our conversations regarding how the city of Schenectady is policed, I thoroughly believe that an understanding of what we do and why we do it will help to serve, to help understand what role the Schenectady Police Department plays in the community. So that's why the larger scale presentation will be important. The rest of this slide and the next couple slides are just going to introduce you to things that will be in the larger slide. I'm not going to go over them tonight. I just want to kind of show our audience, these are the things that the larger presentation will involve. This is the numbers that we all know about. I just want to reiterate them. That in Schenectady, we have a population of 65,000, a little bit more than 65,000. And on the left-hand side, you'll see what the city budget is and what the Schenectady Police Department budget is, how many sworn officers we have, how many civilian staff we have, the number of calls we received in 2019, and the number of actual calls for service was generated from those calls. It also shows the command staff of the police department. Of course, Commissioner Items oversees the police department and reports directly to the mayor. This is an important slide. I want to take a little time to talk about it. I think it was 2007 that we first started talking about procedural justice. We adopted it as a guiding principle here at the police department back then. The Schenectady Police Department has adopted procedural justice as the guiding principle for interactions with the citizens that we serve, as well as internal and external policies and practices. Accordingly, the Schenectady Police Department continues to adopt a guardian mindset to build public trust and legitimacy. By legitimacy, this means the public's belief that the authority enforcing the law has the right to do so. We recognize that there are recent events that have questioned this legitimacy. I've indicated them on this slide. Our mission statement is, we, the members of the Schenectady Police Department, are committed to reducing crime through effective implementation of crime prevention and intelligence-driven policing strategies. Furthermore, we will tenaciously investigate crimes when they occur to ensure the expeditious arrest and effective prosecution of criminal offenders. We will deliver the highest quality of police services possible, working in partnership with the community and within the framework of the U.S. and New York State Constitution. We will conduct ourselves as consummate professionals both on and off duty. Our vision is through community partnership, the principles of procedural justice and intelligence-led policing. The Schenectady Police Department will work tirelessly to create and maintain a safe and secure city that all can be proud of. We've adopted core values, which are professionalism, integrity, ethics, service, excellence, wellness, the golden rule, and legacy. We've included our agency goals and our individual hero goals into the PowerPoint. And while I'm not going to go through and read to everybody the 9 principles of policing that were created over 100 years ago, close to 200 years ago, by Sir Robert Peel, I encourage everybody to get on there and read them and become familiar with them, because these are the principles of policing that are taught in our colleges, taught in our policing academies, and I believe that they still ring true today. Everything that was written almost 2 years ago. Building trust and establishing legitimacy is not a new concept for the police. Sir Robert Peel and his commissioners knew it well long ago. And I want everybody in the community to know that we do our best to remember these principles on a daily basis. The next few slides are going to be to cover topics that I know that the community might have questions about as they relate to the Schenectady Police Department. I'm going to talk about some special operations warrant executions. Two different types of warrants. There are standard search warrant and a no-knock warrant. Standard search warrant enables an officer to search a premises or a vehicle. It requires officers to give notice of his authority and purpose prior to making entry. These are generally served by a detective division or a UTA bureau. Used for securing evidence in a criminal case, recovery of stolen property, or arresting a person who is subject of an arrest warrant. A no-knock warrant carries an endorsement enabling an officer to search a premises or vehicle without giving notice. They're issued by a court when there is reasonable cause to believe the property sought may be easily and quickly destroyed or disposed of. Giving such notice may endanger the life or safety of the executing officer or other persons, or the person sought on an arrest warrant is meeting the aforementioned criteria such as cases involving gun violence. A no-knock search warrant is considered high risk and will most always be served by our Special Operations Squad. Our Special Operations Squad is trained to deal with violent individuals who may be armed. Carry the proper equipment to make entry into barricaded buildings quickly and with minimal exposure of the executing officers. When a no-knock warrant is requested by a division, the supervisor within the investigative unit will prepare a packet of information regarding the warrant service, a copy of the search warrant. That packet is then provided to the investigative services bureau chief. That chief will review the packet and apply a matrix developed by the New York State Police to determine whether or not utilization of our SOS team is appropriate. The matrix takes into consideration the facts and circumstances in the affidavit for the search warrant, criminal history of the suspects and targeted location, the details learned during the target scout, and any intelligence gained from definitive information gathered during the investigation. Based upon this matrix, the chief makes a decision on the authorization of the SWAT team, SOS team. The decision is relayed back to the individual involved supervisor. I've been told I have to speak up, so I'm going to increase my volume. I apologize to everybody if you can't hear me. I hope that the microphone is on my camera. So I apologize for getting close to this. The next slide covers a variety of different things that will be in the larger scaled PowerPoint, but they're identified in the governor's executive order, and the slide and the presentations that will follow online will speak to what we are doing here at the Schenectady Police Department involving each topic. And it's fair to say that each of these 7 topics that you see here on this slide, we at the Schenectady Police Department have been doing for years. And we have highly trained officers that have gone to school to learn about each and every one of them. And we meet regularly to discuss at the command staff level the progress of each initiative. I want to encourage everybody to go onto the City of Schenectady website and review our use of force policy. This is something that we would like to talk about during these conversations, because I know that this is a topic that concerns many in our community. Policy is number 300. provides guidelines on the reasonable use of force by Schenectady police officers. I'll leave this slide up here for everybody to read. I do want to note that at the Schenectady Police Department, whenever force is used or force is threatened, officers are required to fill out a form that contains data information that revolves around that use of force. That information is logged, and we use it regularly to analyze force used by this agency, and we use it to compare how we are doing in relation to how we have been doing. So we will compare year to year on how we are doing. We will draw conclusions from the data force that's analyzed. There is a report that we are working on. It was completed, but I found an error in it. We found an error in it, and I've asked our analysts to fix the error, and it turned into a manual review of the data that they had to go back on. So I do hope to have it soon for everybody to see. We will release it. Procedural justice is something that's important to us. We have 2 master instructors here at the police department. 2 of the 9 statewide instructors reside at the Schenectady Police Department. That is something that we are very proud of. It's a philosophy that is a consistent reminder for officers and their role as law enforcement officers. The 4 principles of procedural justice are voice, neutrality, respect, and trustworthiness. Legitimacy is the main goal behind principled policing and procedural justice, where the public view of police as having the ability to exercise authority is very important. De-escalation training and practices is an important topic for these conversations. I wanted to demonstrate what we have been doing over the past 4 years as regards to de-escalation training. Again, this is all available online for anybody that wants to get on and read more about it. And we will have a presentation, that's a video presentation, that will be given by our master instructors and or our commanders. We're very proud of the work that we've been doing in the community. I want to take some time to just explain some of the harm reductions, the harm reduction program that we're involved in. Our harm reduction program is an assistance for the patrol division when they're dealing with individuals who have frequent police contact, often due to substance abuse or mental health disorders. We're also very proud of the Community Police Basketball League that was established in 2014 by community leaders Ray Frazier and Rose Rivera. And Lieutenant Mascherone and retired Police Chief Brian Kilcullen were the first to join this basketball league. And since then, many police officers have joined in the effort. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do it this year due to the pandemic. We at the police department are involved in many reading programs. This slide here will show the different programs that we're involved in. During the COVID-19 outbreak, we moved this platform online on Facebook. Our other school-based initiatives, specifically the Boys and Girls Day Out, is something that we're very active in, as well as the 21st Century Leadership Advisory Board. As part of our recruitment efforts, one of our lieutenants, Lieutenant Tom Kelly, and I believe it was then Sergeant, but now Lieutenant Michael Dalton, helped form the Criminal Justice Club, the law enforcement club at the Schenectady High School. This is a picture of them last year at our Schenectady night out. And it's an opportunity for us to explain to high school students what being a police officer is all about and give them the opportunity to decide if law enforcement is a career choice for them. This is something else that we're very proud of. our partnership with Save Our Streets, where from participating in the Halloween candy for the Bergeron family to Thanksgiving meal preparation and delivery to the random Santum drop-offs. We've also done coffee with a cop that turned into a pizza with a cop. We, unfortunately, for the most of this year, we haven't been able to do them, but in 2019 and early 2020, we must have done this a dozen or 2 dozen times. Last year, our annual Schenectady Haunted Patrol, we stopped at 5 different locations, and you can see from the photos, they were packed. We're also engaged on social media on 3 different platforms: Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I would encourage everybody on this to engage us on social media. We like to put out a lot of information, whether it's with positive news or just information about what's going on in the city. This is a slide that shows some of the things that we've been doing, working together, supporting our community. We've partnered with the DEA and with CVS Pharmacy. Take back drugs off of the streets of our community. Prescription drugs can be dropped off at the police department, either in the drop box or on specific days when they can drop them off through the DEA program. Take back National Prescription Drug Take Back Day, which I believe will be occurring very soon. The purpose of the Civilian Police Review Board is to improve communication between the police department and the community, to increase police accountability and credibility with the public, and to create a complaint review process that is free from bias and informed of actual police practices. In Schenectady, the panel is made up of 9 community members, each nominated from the following groups. Below is a link to the website on the Schenectady City website that covers the Civilian Police Review Board, and on that website you can download a complaint form. Complaints can be downloaded or picked up at the police department. We will also deliver one personally if you ask. We have a phone number and an email available to also make a complaint. And we monitor social media platforms for potential complaints. Important to note that if we see a complaint on social media, if we are made aware of it, we will investigate it fully. I've outlined here the complaint process. I want to take a minute to talk about over-policing in Schenectady, because it is something that I'm well aware of that is a concern of some community members. Over-policing of communities is a topic that is continuously discussed here at the police department. Police commanders are held accountable to maintain a balance between providing neighborhoods the public safety that they deserve and not subjecting those community members to more police attention simply because they live in a neighborhood where crimes are being committed. We do use DDACs to drive where we send our police officers. We do increase contacts by sending officers to these communities, but they're not simply for data collection purposes. They're simply to engage with the community and let the community know that we are out there. It's for a presence, not necessarily for enforcement. We are committed to rethinking community engagement through a stakeholder conversation that we are about to have. On this slide, it talks a little bit about the use of force reports that I already mentioned. And it gives a little bit of a historical backdrop of where we were 4 years ago, in the form of our use of force data was written on pieces of paper and reviewed, but it wasn't put onto a computer where it could be analyzed. And we undertook an initiative to get that done, and it is done. And now moving forward, all use of force is captured electronically, and it can be immediately analyzed. We will be having a separate presentation by the Fit Institute. I want to take a minute to acknowledge the fact that they've been a longstanding partner of ours, going back to, I believe I said 2007, when the Procedural Justice and Police Legitimacy Research Project was started. We share data with them for research purposes, and we are proud of the fact that we've collaborated with them on two projects already. And we regularly rely on them for counsel and advice. When George Floyd was murdered right around Memorial Day, we knew immediately that our profession was changing. What happened to him was wrong. Since the death of George Floyd, we've recognized that we need to listen more, try to understand, begin a dialogue with our community stakeholders on where we need to improve. We recognize that actions speak louder than words, and we're committed to that. This slide is the Executive Order 203, and the part that I've highlighted are the points that we are really focusing on reviewing here through this stakeholder conversations. Evidence-based policing strategies, use of force, procedural justice, studies addressing systemic racial bias or racial justice in policing, implicit bias awareness training, de-escalation training practices. This is the executive order. We've also put a link to it on the full PowerPoint. This slide, and I'd like to take a minute just to tell everybody how we've gotten to where we're at right now. As a result of Governor Cuomo's Executive Order 203, which names Mayor McCarthy and the police chief, myself, as the co-chairs, we began planning the collaborative conversations in early July of this year. We collaborated with Dr. Odo Butler of the NAACP, Rave Ishmael of the Guideline Community Center, and the chair and co-chair of the Civilian Police Review Board, Dick Shade and Carl Williams, respectively. We were in the beginning stages of forming an advisory board that would later be titled the Steering Committee. We also took the time to consult with Union College President David Harris and Ellis Hospital CEO Paul Milton. And the steering committee slowly grew with the addition of community leaders such as the Clergy Against Hate, SUNY Schenectady President Steady Muno, Pastor William Hamilton, William Rivas, Kayla Foster, and members of the Schenectady City Council. During this process, a research partner was selected and asked to advise on the process. That's Dr. Ward and Dr. McLean of the Fit Institute. The purpose of the steering committee was to organize meetings to solicit input from community members regarding changes and/or reforms to the Schenectady Police Department. Through this review process, the steering committee sought to identify ways to better serve the city's diverse community, build confidence, strengthen trust and legitimacy, and address disparities that affect communities of color. Our first task was to create a format for a transparent and honest conversation moderated by a trusted professional who has experience navigating difficult dialogue with compassion and respect. Jason Benitez was recommended for this role as a lead moderator, and he accepted. As previously already stated, Jason currently serves as the Vice President of Talent and Inclusion at the Capital Region Chamber, was previously the Associate Dean, Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Union College, where he helped implement strategic diversity and inclusion plans to enhance equity practices across the Community College campus. Over the next 3 weeks, 6 conversations will be held, each covering a group dynamic. Following are those groups: community civic organizations, faith-based organizations, neighborhood, youth and education-based organizations, public safety organizations, and business associations. Throughout these conversations, our research partner, the Finn Institute, is responsible for taking notes, gathering facts, and identifying topics that are important to the group. There will also be meeting minutes taken. The conversations will be recorded. The media will be present. At the conclusion of the conversations, the research partner will create a survey that will be sent to all participants. The research partner will then summarize all findings and submit a report to the steering committee. The Schenectady Police Department command staff will weigh the findings of the report with current policies, strategies, and practices and draw conclusions. These conclusions will be in the form of it's addressing a certain policy or strategy. We will conclude that's either acceptable or unacceptable. If it's unacceptable, a reform will be recommended. We will also look at generalized changes that are not specific to any certain policy or practice. Once these reform recommendations are solidified, they will be submitted to the Mayor, Mayor McCarthy, and Commissioner of Public Safety, Michael Ivins, for review and approval. Once approved, all recommendations will be presented to the Schenectady City Council, where a public comment period will take place prior to ratification. And that needs to be done before April 1st of 2021 for the executive order. I would next like to show slides that answer the 13 demands that were presented to the police department a couple months ago. It may have been 12 weeks ago. I'm not going to read the answers. I'd like everybody to go there and read for themselves, but I really would just like to point out that each and every demand has been answered. This does not necessarily mean that we're done talking about them. But I'd like that the answer to each question be thoroughly reviewed by everybody that's on this call, all stakeholders, and we will talk about it during the next few conversations, all 6 of them. I want to encourage everybody on this call and participants in our conversations, when they get the time, to go to the Schenectady website, City of Schenectady website, and review the recommended policies. These are them right here. These are the policies that we've identified that most closely cover concerns that the public has already voiced. This does not mean that all of these policies will be inclusive of all of the concerns of the public that may arise during these conversations. But these are the ones that we've identified already that will be covering, that cover some of the concerns that we have heard. I encourage everybody to go there and read these policies. If you have any questions or concerns about them, please bring them up in the conversations. I'd like to thank everybody for being on this call right now. I would like to turn it over to Carissa Pizzano, who will go over the timeline of our conversations and some logistics. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Clifford. Do we have feedback? We're good? Okay. Thanks, Chief Clifford. Hi, everyone. My name is Carissa Pizzano. I work in the Mayor's office for Mayor McCarthy. I am very appreciative of the opportunity to talk through what the next few weeks are going to look like for us. Since Governor Cuomo issued Executive Order 203, we established a 4-phase approach to meeting the goals and mission of the Schenectady Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative. Phase 1, which began in August, we focused on establishing goals and a planning process of the collaborative. Phase 2, which we're kicking off tonight, will run through November. Over these next few weeks, we're conducting our community meetings, and at the conclusion of these meetings, we'll transition into Phase 3, which will run through November through December, which at that point, the Finn Institute for Public Safety, our independent research partner, will present its findings from the meetings and any testimony that was submitted and comments submitted throughout the process to the mayor, Chief Clifford, and command staff. From there, we'll work to put together a plan that reflects the community's needs. Phase 4, which is going to be our last phase, is the point at which our plan is then submitted to the City Council, which will then follow the appropriate public comments and action to meet the deadline established by Governor Cuomo, which is April 1 of 2021. As a reminder, Chief Clifford's presentation from this evening and any supporting documents throughout this entire process will be posted on the city's website. And any comments, questions, testimony can always be submitted at any point through the SPD Collaborative at SchenectadyPD.com website, or excuse me, email address. And with that, we thank you all and really look forward to working together. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much. And that concludes our presentation for tonight. Thank you all for being in attendance, and we look forward to having our first conversation tomorrow night, which is our community conversation. Thank you, everyone.